Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel. I'm really glad you are here today and that you chose to spend a little time practicing English with me. In this lesson, we will work with a short story and use the shadowing technique to improve your speaking skills. You will listen, repeat, and build confidence step by step. Find a quiet place, relax, and get ready to speak out loud. Let's begin together. Shadowing is simple and effective. First, listen to each sentence, then pause the video and repeat it out loud. Try to match my tone, rhythm, and speed. Now that you're ready, let's begin our story. Listen carefully and repeat each sentence after me. My name is Lara Kim, and I live in a small coastal town surrounded by cliffs and quiet beaches. I am 24 years old and work at the local museum, where I guide visitors and tell them stories about sailors, storms, and long journeys across the sea. I love history, and I enjoy sharing old tales with curious people. One bright spring morning, just as I opened the museum doors, I received a letter that immediately caught my attention. It was from a distant neighbor who lived outside town. They explained that an old boat had washed ashore near their home, and inside it they found several mysterious maps. They asked if I could take a look. I enjoy small adventures, so I packed a notebook, a torch, and some snacks. Then I rode my blue bicycle along the windy coastal road. The air smelled of salt and blooming wildflowers, and the sea shimmered softly. I knew the road well, but I had no idea what I was about to discover. When I reached the small beach where the boat had landed, I immediately noticed how old it was. The wooden boards were cracked and seaweed hung from the sides like long green ribbons. Near the rocks, a small wooden chest rested half buried in the sand. Curious and slightly nervous, I walked to a nearby cottage and knocked on the door, but no one answered. I returned to the chest, opened it carefully, and found faded papers, a thin leather book, and a brass compass that still pointed steadily north. The papers showed hand-drawn maps filled with strange symbols. In one corner, a name was written in faded ink. I decided to take everything to the museum to show my manager, Mr. Collins. He was an older man who had spent many years studying stories of the sea. When he saw the handwriting, his expression changed. He said the letters could belong to a sailor who once traveled with a small crew and mysteriously disappeared. A chill ran through me. It felt unreal to be holding something so old and meaningful. Mr. Collins studied the papers with a magnifying glass, turning each page slowly. He told me stories of lost islands and forgotten routes sailors used long ago. We spent the entire afternoon searching the museum archive, comparing notes, and trying to match the symbols. He even called an old friend who recognized the name. Soon, word spread around town, and people grew curious. I felt excited but also worried about what we might uncover. One calm evening, while I was walking along the shore to clear my mind, I heard a quiet voice echoing between the rocks. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the sound repeated, soft and trembling. Curious, I followed it and soon discovered a young woman sitting on a wet stone. Her hair was damp, her clothes were travel-worn, and she held an old brass compass tightly against her chest as if it were something precious. When she looked up at me, her eyes were filled with exhaustion and hope. She told me her name was Mira. Her father had been a small boat captain who loved the sea more than anything. Many years ago, he had set off on a long journey, promising to return quickly, but he never came back. Mira explained that she had carried his compass ever since, believing that one day a clue would appear. When she heard rumors that an old boat had washed ashore near our town with maps inside, she traveled here as fast as she could. She hoped the papers might reveal something about her father's final voyage. I realized that the documents we had found might be exactly what she was searching for. I showed her the faded maps and the compass from the chest. As soon as she compared them with her father's compass, she noticed similar markings. The symbols on the maps matched small scratches on the edge of the compass case, marks her father had carved by hand. Mira gasped softly, and for a moment she simply held both items together, as if she were holding a piece of him. We decided to work together. Over the next several days, Mira and I spent many hours at the museum. We cleaned the maps carefully, copied the symbols onto fresh paper, and studied the routes the sailor might have taken. At night, we walked to the beach and practiced reading the stars. Mira told me how her father had taught her to look at the sky and find her direction when she felt lost. I told her about the museum, my love for old stories, and how I often dreamed of discovering something meaningful. The villagers soon learned about our search and offered their help. A fisherman lent us a small rowboat with a steady engine. Another gave us lanterns and extra blankets. People wished us luck and said they hoped we would find answers. On the morning we set out, the sea was calm, and the sky was pale gold. Mira stood beside me, her hand shaking slightly as she held the compass. She smiled with a mixture of fear and hope. As we sailed, fog drifted across the water, and the compass needle moved gently. We followed the faded route from the maps, trusting that the clues would guide us. After several hours, we reached a narrow rocky outcrop marked with a symbol that matched one on the papers. We climbed carefully and found a small cave hidden behind a curtain of seaweed. Inside, protected from the weather, was a wooden box wrapped tightly in oilskin. Mira opened the box slowly. Inside were letters from her father. They described a terrible storm that had struck his ship, separating him from his crew. He had searched for help on a nearby island and left messages behind, hoping someone would find them and return them to his family. The letters were full of love, regret, and hope. As Mira read the words, tears streamed down her face, yet her expression softened. "Now I know he tried. Now I know he never forgot us," she whispered. In that moment, the cave felt warm, as though the sea itself was holding its breath. We carried the letters back, and when the town learned what we had found, people gathered to listen. Mr. Collins prepared a special place in the museum for the documents. An older fisherman even brought a wooden token he had found years ago, realizing it must have belonged to Mira's father. Our search had brought pieces of a long-lost story back together. After the letters were safely placed in the museum display, life slowly settled back into its familiar rhythm. Yet everything felt slightly different. I found myself thinking often about Mira's courage and the quiet strength she carried through her long search. The town seemed calmer, softer, as if everyone felt the weight of the story we had uncovered. I realized that small acts of help can create deep and lasting change. We do not always need dramatic moments to find peace. Sometimes truth and kindness are enough. Mira continued visiting the museum almost every day. She wrote short notes explaining her father's story and helped guide children who came to read the letters. She told me that speaking the words aloud helped her heal and made her feel connected to her father in a new way. Visitors often said that the display helped them think differently about family, memory, and the quiet bravery of sailors who face the unknown. One peaceful evening, we gathered at the shore with a few townspeople. The sun was low. Casting warm light across the water, Mira read one of her father's letters aloud. her voice steady and full of emotion. When she finished, we placed a small lantern on the water as a sign of remembrance. The soft light drifted gently across the waves, and the sound of the sea felt like an answer, calm, patient, and comforting. Mira turned to me and said she no longer felt the heavy silence that once lived in her heart. At that moment, I understood fully. Stories can heal, not just those who tell them, but those who listen. Helping someone had taught me the importance of patience, compassion, and simple care. From then on, I told stories at the museum with renewed passion, grateful that our small search had brought light to so many. Great job. You finished the story. Now go back and listen again. Pause after each sentence and repeat out loud. Shadowing will help you improve your pronunciation, rhythm, and confidence. Practice a little every day and you will see real progress. Thank you for learning with me today. See you in the next story. Goodbye.